Chapter 13. The shuttle's descent rattled the ridge stones, sending a ripple of dust cascading down the slope. Its landing struts sank half a meter into the soft soil before the pilot throttled back, stabilizers hissing into position. For a moment, the windless plane was alive with sound. Metal creak, residual hum of the engines, grit pattering against the hull. Then the turbine spooled down and the silence reclaimed everything. Rook stepped out first, the incline of the ridge rising on his right, the low valley stretching eastward to the horizon on his left. The morning light had no warmth here. It slanted in pale and thin, scattering across the fine powder that lay over the rock like frost. He scanned the horizon and saw nothing moving. Not a shadow, not a glint, only the endless monochrome of a world emptied of its people. He adjusted his collar seal against the air, dry as parchment, and keyed the comm. "Form up!" Caro came next, heavier boots crunching, his gaze sweeping the valley with the instinctive precision of a man who never trusted maps alone. He paused near Rook, helmet still in hand, letting the morning glare etch lines into his already hard features. 5 miles from the LZ, he said quietly. Never thought 5 miles could feel like 500. Rook only grunted in agreement. Malin descended with a portable console slung across her chest, its projection field flickering faint blue in the dawn. She tapped a quick sequence, and the terrain overlay bloomed above the unit. Grid lines, depth estimates, the faint thread of the vector traced by the recon drone's last mapping sweep. She adjusted the scale, aligning it with the ridge's jagged spine. "Confirmation," she reported. "The stair vector terminus is directly beneath us. No surface breach visible yet." Her voice was calm, but she kept her eyes down, away from the horizon. Kell hopped down after her, lighter on his feet, carrying a coil pack slung awkwardly at his hip. His eyes flicked between Malin's projection and the slope ahead, as though overlay and reality might betray different truths. He muttered something under his breath in his clipped Langley accent, then straightened. "Readings match, but I don't like how clean it looks. No sign of subsidence, no fracture pattern, like it was never meant to be found." His fingers tapped his thigh in restless rhythm until he caught himself and shoved his hands into his belt. The Marines followed, Varga first, tall and broad with his helmet clipped to his harness, then Ilyin, leaner, with his rifle already unslung. They paused just beyond the shuttle's struts, squinting into the rising glare. Varga smirked, shaking dust from his gauntlets. "Hell of a picnic spot," he said. "Anyone bring the wine?" Ilyin gave a dry chuckle, not looking away from the ridge. "Dust vintage only, goes down rough." The attempt at levity hung in the air for a few steps, but no one picked it up. Silence folded in, thick and absolute, until even the memory of humor seemed out of place. The hiss of settling dust filled the gap instead, faint and steady, like a whisper repeating itself across the valley. Rook signaled forward. "Move out!" Standard interval. The 6 of them fanned into a shallow line, boots crunching against the ridge's crust. Every step stirred the powder into brief swirls that settled almost instantly, as though the planet were eager to swallow its own scars. The climb was slow, not from difficulty but from caution. Each man and woman kept scanning the ground, as though some evidence of the colony might yet be carved into the stone or buried beneath the dust. But there was nothing, no tracks, no ruins, no scrap of metal. The Kereth had been thorough. Only the ridge rose ahead, jagged and irregular, its crown still shadowed from the low angle of the sun. Malin kept the overlay running as they walked, the vector line pulsing faintly across the projection. "Depth gradient confirms we're above the stair route," she said softly, almost to herself. "Sealed overlay indicates a cap seam somewhere near the crown. 10 meters radius." She pinched the scale down, marked a glowing circle, then flicked the image into Rook's visor. "That's your box." Rook studied the feed without breaking stride. "Noted. Keep the overlay live." Caro walked at his flank, silent, his gaze roaming the terrain as if looking for something the overlay couldn't see. After several minutes he spoke, his voice low. "The air's wrong. Smells like it's been sitting too long." He tapped the respirator on his jaw. "Filters don't change that." "It's not air," Malin corrected. "It's memory. The particles hold chemical signatures from what happened here. You're breathing what they left." She caught herself, pressed her lips together, and turned back to her console. Varga glanced sidelong at Ilyin. "Remind me why we brought scientists instead of a demolition crew." Ilyin didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the ridge, shoulders taut. They crested a low rise and the shuttle disappeared behind them. Ahead, the slope climbed sharply, etched with shallow gullies where old water might once have flowed. The gullies were filled now with the same fine powder that coated everything, shifting slightly with each breath of wind. The ridgetop beckoned, a serrated edge against the pale sky. Kel broke the silence, his voice tight. "You hear that?" The group halted instinctively, scanning. For a moment there was only silence. Then a faint hiss drifted through the valley, not wind, not quite static, but something in between. It faded as quickly as it came. "Just dust," Malin said, but her tone lacked conviction. Rook gestured onward. "Don't stop. The ridge will give us a vantage." The last stretch was steep, boots sinking into soft layers with every step. When they reached the crest, the ground leveled into a plateau no more than 20 meters across. From here, the valley spread out beneath them in pale waves, endless and unbroken. The sun had climbed higher, but its light did little to chase away the hollowness. It illuminated the absence more than the land. Malin crouched, her console flickering. She traced the overlay again, aligning the projection with the plateau. "Here, center mass, beneath us." She expanded the map, showing the vector plunging down, then angling northeast into the earth. "The stair should be directly under this position." Rook stood at the center of the plateau, scanning the dust-crusted ground. No seam, no marker, nothing but the uniform crust. He crouched, scooped a handful of dust, let it run through his fingers. It fell too evenly, as though every grain had been placed deliberately. He wiped his hand against his boot and straightened. "Then this is it." The others gathered, silent. The plateau felt smaller now, the weight of what lay beneath pressing upward. Even Varga had lost his smirk. He adjusted his rifle strap and muttered, "Feels like standing on a lid, just waiting to open its mouth." Rook met his gaze. "That's exactly what it is." The words hung there, final, undeniable. They all knew the truth already, but saying it aloud gave it form. The ridge was a threshold, and the second mouth waited below. Containment Bay 3 had a way of shrinking the world down to the hum. It sank into the ribs, nested behind teeth, set a faint pressure at the temple just beneath where the visor seals would sit if they wore them here. The walls wore Faraday mesh like coarse fabric, the cold bit as a courtesy. Fluorescent strips fluttered a fraction off true, as if the light itself was trying not to be noticed. Technician Valen stood at the cradle console and forced his breathing into a square. In 4, hold 2, out 4, hold 2. The rhythm helped him read. Even through gloves, he felt micro-vibrations in the housing. Normal, he told himself. Field generators sang when you loaded them. Normal as anything else around a thing that wasn't. The spear form floated inside the restraint field at the bay's center. A black geometry with too many angles to be human, too many implied curves to be inert. It took light and didn't give it back. Veins along its flanks looked delicate from a distance, but up close had the stubbornness of forged bone. It hung without motion, yet never looked still. "Confirm cradle locks," said Containment Officer Harlan from the mezzanine rail. He had the voice of a man who believed in lists. Primary mag struts 1 through 4, green. Secondary braces, amber until hard lock with shuttle skids. Flight-ready clamps unlocked. Field inverter standby. "Copy," Valen said. Green marched down the board in neat progressions. The amber winked, impatient. He resisted the urge to rub his eyes. 2 Marines stood by the bulkhead door, helmets clipped to their belts. The younger one, Solus, rubbed at his jaw. The older, Kara, watched the spear form without blinking. "Lift coming," Harlan said. "Shuttle cradle should be at our door in 30. Begin atmospheric prep. Keep it gentle." "Gentle," Valen repeated. Saying it helped, he slid his finger down the prep sequence. Airflow shifted. Static bled into the mesh. The cradle's systems woke. Lights stair-stepping along the rails. The hum deepened half a note, enough to raise the hairs along his forearms. Kara's head tilted. "You hear that?" Solus half smiled. "Feel it, like someone stringing a wire through the fillings." Valen kept his eyes on the board. "That's the inverter staging. You'll feel it before your ears peg it." The explanation sounded good enough he almost believed it. Harlan leaned over the rail. None of the dramatics. If it's within tolerance, it's within tolerance. "It's within," Valen said. He wasn't lying yet. The cradle's indicator lights began their dance. They should have sequenced in pairs. Instead, 3 on the starboard rail blinked a half-beat late, then 1 stayed on too long. Valen frowned, reran the test. Same lag. "Kara," Harlan called, "step off the deck. I want to see if it's loading to mass or reacting to personnel." Kara moved. The next cycle still lagged. "Minor timing jitter," Valen reported. .12. Could be cradle firmware. The room didn't like the answer, and neither did he. "Log it," Harlan said. "Proceed." Valen toggled the next stage. The hum gave a throaty swell before settling again. He checked the spear form for movement. None, but its shadow on the mesh shifted, suggesting motion where there was none. Field stability at 99.7, Valen said, and vertigo washed over him. The numbers on his console doubled, slid apart, then clicked together again. He fixed his eyes on the center, until his breath put the room back in place. "You good, Tech?" Kara asked. "Fine," Valen said. The word felt borrowed. Solus winced, tones worse. "Under the tongue now." "You can wait in the hall," Valen muttered. "What, and miss the show?" Solus tried to grin, then swallowed when the hum pulsed again. The deck intercom pinged. "Bay 3, this is flight. Cradle docked at door 2. Ready to couple and go hot on your mark." "Copy," Harlan said. Bay 3 confirms. "Valen." "Coupling rails aligned," Valen said, fingers steady. He watched the status panel sketch the cradle's outline and nest it to the bay's geometry. Misaligned for a breath, then true. Green on alignment. Initiating collar sync. The collar emitters rose in pitch. A mosquito that lived in the bones. The spearform's outline shivered inside the field, barely perceptible, then settled again. "Tell me you saw that," Kara said. "Transient interference," Harlan said quickly. "It's recorded. Proceed." "Collar sync achieved. Transferring field authority to cradle in 3, 2, 1. The handover was supposed to be seamless. Somewhere in the changeover a beat dropped and the room noticed. The hum thickened. The overheads dipped and recovered. The indicator lights blinked out of sequence again. "Still within tolerance," Harlan said, voice iron. Valen magnified the field map. Phase drift. Small, but there. Harlan peered down. "Orientation?" "Polarity shift," Valen said. Cold traced his spine. All 3 redundant traces confirmed it. It's rotated its field 3 degrees on the z-axis. The mass anchor stayed. The field moved. "The object moved?" "No. The field moved around it." The Marine stayed silent. "But the object is stationary. We are maintaining containment," Harlan pressed. "Yes," Valen said flatly. "Then we are within tolerance," Harlan said. "Flight Bay 3 green for transport." There was a quiet in which Valen could hear his own pulse. He glanced through the mesh at the spearform. Its shadow wasn't the same shape anymore. He made a box in his head and put that thought inside it. "Copy Bay 3, Flight said, unaware of any boxes. "We have your green." Harlan nodded. "Proceed with transport." Valen did not say the thing behind his teeth. The object had not moved, and yet the world around it had changed. He set his hand on the release and felt the hum climb a fraction more, laying a thread along the rim of his molars. "Stable," Harlan said again, softer, like reassurance was part of the sequence. "We are stable." The cradle's rails locked with a sound like a distant door closing. The room held its breath. The indicator lights marched in tidy patterns down both sides. On Valen's console, the polarity shift held at 3 degrees, precise as a decision. He wrote the number into the log, and for a second the characters refused to be just characters. They looked like the record of a moment in which something turned its face without moving and saw them. They found the cap by the way it pretended not to be there. The plateau looked uniform until you knelt and asked it questions. Malin asked with a micro brush, lifting the top film of dust. Beneath, an off-color gray emerged. Alloy, not rock. She scraped again. "There," she said. "Non-native, plate seam." Kel crouched beside her, visor down, readouts ghosting his cheek. He probed the edge with a pry pick. No lip, burnished level and dusted. Without the mass contrast, we'd miss it. Rook paced the circle Malin outlined. Boot marks filling as the dust flowed back. The ridge fell away on 3 sides. The shuttle sat 100 meters downslope. The pilot a patient click on the comm. Holding. "Thickness?" "Hard to say without cutting," Malin said. "Likely multi-layer. Faint current below, minimal but active." Varga planted a heel. The cap gave nothing. "We could make this quicker." His hand hovered near the charge pouch. "Quicker isn't safer," Malin said. "Blow it wrong and we collapse the stair or overpressurize the shaft." Ilian eyed the slope. "If wind kicks while we're down." He let it die. Caro spoke before Rook could. "She's right. Precision cut. This isn't a raid. It's an autopsy." Rook tasted metal and old paper. Decision set his shoulders. "Torch. We do this without waking the neighbors." Kel unpacked the cutter. Compact lance, reactive hopper, a cable back to the shuttle's cell. Lights flipped green. "Bow cut," he said. "Control the stress." Put it where I can cover 2 arcs, Varga muttered, already placing himself. Ilian mirrored him. Malin traced the seam with a steady hand. Inside the joint, work out. Slow. Kel lit the lance. A clean high note, then a muffled roar as he lowered the tip. Orange-white ate a crescent through the dust. Beneath, the composite flashed dull and stubborn, surrendering a millimeter at a time. Metals with a memory, he grunted. Slow going. Slow is fine, Malin said, eyes on stress readouts. Minutes accumulated. The ridge listened to the torch and the soft hiss of dust. The first arc finished with an ugly cough as an inner filament burned and parted. A thread of stale air slicked Rook's tongue like coins. Malin checked her sensor. Pressure differential slight. Internal is thinner, regulated. No volatiles. Continue, Rook said. Kel swung the second arc. Dust rose in a lazy twist. Ilian watched it. Something's pulling, like a breath. Don't anthropomorphize the hole, Kel said, easing his cut. They finished the bow. Then a third relief cut to hinge the plate instead of trapping them beneath it. Kel killed the lance. Silence rushed back. Let's see the mouth, Rook said. They levered bars into the slot and heaved. The plate gave with a groan and came up. Dust billowed. Malin stepped back, sleeve over her intake as the plume rolled over them. Beneath, an industrial stair. Wide, straight, dropping into a lightless shaft. Pitted treads, grated landings, fused rails. Everything furred with dust. Kel's lamp cut a ribbon into the dark. A landing at 8 meters, another below. The angle matched the drone's 3% grade like something built to move weight. Malin watched dust in the beam. It sank instead of tumbling. Regulations on. Low cycle. Pressure below ambient, enough to stir air, not enough to draw us. Why keep breathing if no one's here? Ilian asked. Because no one told it to stop, Malin said. Rook took the first step. The ridge's silence had been a sky. The stairs was a narrow gaze. Each tread accepted his weight without complaint. Gray climbed his boots. Spacing same as surface, he said. And the formation fell in. Varga right, Ilian left, Caro just behind Rook, Malin and Kel in the middle with their numbers and graphs. They descended. On the first landing, a drag scuff, a shorn bolt, the outline where a wall plate had been, a faint green status pinpricked on a panel. Backup draw, Malin murmured. No alarms. Listen. A far thump, too slow for machinery and too regular for chance. Pressure reg valves doing a job. Sealed doors punctuated the shaft. Heavy ovals, dead or faint lights, handles unturned for a long time. Varga tested one. It refused impatiently. Mark it, Rook said. We don't split yet. Kel dropped a blue breadcrumb into the overlay. They moved on. A notice board on the third landing held a single fused corner of laminate. Malin touched it. It blistered to nothing. Don't touch what you care about reading, she said. On the fifth, Ilian raised a hand. His lamp found a cleaner door. Caro read ghost text. Supply lock. Aux storage. Atmosphere, Rook asked. Equalized, Malin said. Open, Rook decided. Varga braced. Ilian worked the inset with a pry key. Groans, then a seal release. Thinner air kissed their filters, the ghost of solvent, oil, and something coppery that wasn't blood. Their lights showed a room no one had left. Shelves and crates reduced to outlines beneath ash gray. A central spill drifted into a dune. No prints. No scramble marks. Malin stood at the threshold. Confirmation, she said. Quiet, clinical. They all understood. The Kareth turned the soil this far down. Stairs had not saved anyone. Close it, Kel said. Not for science, but for mercy. Seal it, Rook echoed. The lock re-engaged. A faint green winking. Even horrors have indicators. Keep moving! They walked. The seventh landing's rail was bent. The eighth held a rag of tape that fluoresced tired green. Company issue, Kel said. Late. Malin called out numbers because math steadied the air. O2 partial. CO2 negligible. Pressure point 84. Temp 3 below standard. Static. Power trace? Caro asked. Same cadence, she said. The ninth landing widened around a pillar with dulled hazard striping. Varga cleared corners, nothing moved. Kel's palm found a faint vibration from the structure itself. Still holding breath. Stop giving it pronouns, Ilian muttered. Another sealed door, this one with a handprint in the dust. Varga stared too long, then looked away and reset his face. At the 11th, a lift shaft cut across the stair. The car sat 2 levels above. Dust settled on its floor like fog made solid. If it was moving when... Malin started, then let the hum below end the sentence. They moved. Steps counted themselves. Air licked their faces in brief touches. Somewhere a valve clacked like a metronome. The 15th landing had a small brass plate. 15 punched through. It was absurdly comforting. People had counted here once. Rook kept his mind on time. Lift windows, roots up as well as down. 16th landing. The stair angled a fraction right. The air brought the ghost of a battery room. Mallin's overlay updated. Vector steady. Path length near a kilometer. Blue dots of past doors like a necklace up the shaft. Another door, Ilian said as their beam cut a blank rectangle. No handle. A flush seam. 2 vertical scars where something had been. No lights at all. Mark it, Rook said, testing the rail. It remained perfectly indifferent. They continued. At the 20th landing, a cross corridor opened. Dust hung thicker. Their lamps carved a tunnel of pearl. Mallin pinged it and got a neat echo. Honest walls, nothing else. No pressure change. No power change. Rook looked into the main dark. Stay on vector. The other path could wait. 5 more flights. Kel, quiet. This wasn't built for running. You move things on stairs like these. Rook didn't answer. He pressed the now into the old with his boot. Near their target threshold, the pressure reg cadence deepened a hair, air brushing their faces, almost there. 2 landings ahead, a door with a horizontal seam and a dead status port. Varga took right. Ilian left. Mallin watched numbers. Caro listened. Kel rested the cutter against his thigh like a promise. Rook studied the seam. You don't borrow answers from rooms you haven't opened. Mark position. We proceed on main. They moved past the door that kept its secrets and toward the part of the stair that had stopped being a map. Above, the ridge kept its slow opinion of time. Below, a machine drew a breath and refused to stop. At the next landing, there were no side passages, no bronze numbers, no signage. Only a straight run ahead, treads turned satin by dust. Rail cool beneath their hands, light making its own road in air unused to people. They went down. The stair narrowed before it opened, the descent constricting until each of them had to angle their shoulders against the rail. The air grew cooler, more metallic, not from temperature drop but from the taste of cycling systems clinging on far longer than they should have. Rook felt the faintest tug against his collar seal, the subtle give and take of a facility that still remembered how to breathe. At the next landing, the rail bent away, and beyond it stretched a corridor wider than any they had yet seen. Their lamps reached out and fell across bulkheads lined with conduits, ceiling supports shaped like the ribs of a great animal. The air shimmered faintly with suspended dust, light as breath. Facility level, Mallin whispered. They stepped through. The chamber beyond opened like a mouth pried wide. A vaulted space climbed into darkness, tiers ringing a central floor. Catwalks clung to walls. Sealed offices lined mezzanines. Below, bays of workstations spread like spokes. Dust lay fine as talc across everything. Rook's boots sank half a centimeter with each step, prints filling as the disturbed particles tried to reclaim their order. The lights flickered. Thin emergency bars pulsing at uneven intervals. Too weak to illuminate, just enough to prove power still threaded the bones. Caro moved beside him, visor tilted up. Built to last. Reinforced, sealed. They meant to keep this alive. Rook scanned the perimeter without speaking. Mallin reached a console, brushed dust with the back of her glove. A soft plume rose and settled. Her first 2 panels stayed dead. A third flickered static, then died. Minimal load, she said. Most systems in deep cycle. Not all, Kel said. Across the room, a vertical bank of cracked displays glowed pale green. The uppermost showed glyphs. Circles broken by crescents, bracketed by ticks. Numerics pulsed in sequence, baseline tick, long pause, repeat. Mallin magnified. Same symbol from the drone feed. 2 streams now. 1 strong, 1 faint. Same structure, faint one lags. Call and response, Kel said. Caro's jaw hardened. They're talking to something out there. Rook folded his arms and watched the glyphs pulse, patient as a heart. They spread out. Varga and Ilian took the catwalks. Mallin sampled the air. Kel chased faint current through walls. Caro hovered by the glowing bank. Rook walked the perimeter. The place felt paused rather than abandoned. At the far end, a recessed door showed a muted amber seal. Mallin scanned the frame. Pressure matches main chamber. Rook gestured. Open it. Kel readied the cutter, but the panel yielded to Mallin's touch, groaning into the wall. Dust eddied. Lamps came up. The room beyond was small, 6 by 6. its walls a layered composite that caught the light differently. Smooth, faintly iridescent, seams fused. And in the center, slumped against the far wall, was a body. Not dust, a body. A technician's jumpsuit, fabric stiffened, skin drawn tight over bone, lips cracked, eyes sunken but intact. Not ash. A human form preserved in the stillness of 40 days. Varga swore softly. Ilian whispered, "Saints." Malin crouched at the threshold. Not reduced. Body mass intact. Dehydration and cell collapse. Starvation. They survived the resonance. "Why?" Caro asked, staring at the walls. "What made this room different?" Malin tapped the composite. It sang faintly. "Shielding. Multi-layer EM attenuation. Originally isotope containment or harmonic testing. By accident or intent, it disrupted the Kareth resonance." Kel shook his head. "Everywhere else, dust. Here, a corpse. That's the proof." The doctrine settled like a weight. Not gods. Technology. Overwhelming, not absolute. 99.999 counted as total. A single anomaly went unseen. Rook studied the face. Even collapsed, it carried stubbornness. A refusal in death. He felt it press against his chest. "Mark it," he said quietly. They sealed the chamber. Back in the hall, Malin brushed another panel and touched the power stud. The screen flickered alive. Pale text crawled upward. "Deep cycle's still on," she said. "Hold, this one's different." Code scrolled, then resolved into a diagnostic. A graph blinked, 3 green bars rising and falling. Beneath, a line of text. "Biometric trace active." The room froze. "Repeat that," Caro said. Malin magnified. The text clarified. "Biometric trace, level 0.04, heart rate irregular. Location, chamber 3. She looked at Rook. "Current timestamp." "Impossible," Varga muttered. "Not impossible," Malin said, voice thin. "The shielding worked once. Maybe it worked again." Rook's gaze slid from the screen to the doors lining the mezzanine. One would be chamber 3. Behind them, buoy glyphs pulsed, call and response. Consoles blinked in patient rhythm. For the first time since landing, the hall felt inhabited by more than memory. Rook spoke at last, low and final. "Find them!" The dust seemed to stir at the order, as though the facility itself had been waiting to hear the word.